I would now like to welcome to the stage our editorial director, Debbie Bolla, and the CHRO of Gate Group. Can we get some chairs up for them? And we're going to have a sort of inside the actor's studio, intimate conversation about running HR at a company that has always got to be on time. Sadly, we are a few minutes behind. But if Gate Group doesn't show up with the catering trucks and holds up a plane, you know it. All right, now I will say this much, because Zach did not use the joke that we had, which is last year, Laurie Dalton won a CHRO of the Year for profit, and this year, Michael Spear won talent acquisition. So they have a great group, and we know that the HR group at Gate Group is better than their meatloaf. But hey, welcome to the stage. You're welcome.
I also wanted to note, when we talk about total workforce solutions, Elliot mentioned that it's one of the biggest trends we're seeing in the space. So if you have any more questions that you're looking for some answers to, you can check out the March issue of HRO Today. We have an awesome cover story on total workforce solutions with actual feedback from some providers and some practitioners. So I would love it if you have a look, and you'll get some more information there. So right now I have the pleasure of being on stage with Laurie Dalton, one of last year's winners of our CHRO of the Year Award for Gate Group North America. She's the CHRO. Laurie was recognized last year in part due to her People First initiative. Last year, she said in the magazine, "I believe HR has a very important and positive impact. We are a people-intensive business employing over 10,000 people in the United States alone. We have a strong commitment to put people first." That's a pretty good play on words. As an editor, I love that. So Laurie's going to start off our session today talking about some background on people first.
Would you mind if I did something a little different
Okay,
to start us off with?
Absolutely.
Following a carb-heavy lunch in a nice warm room, and in the spirit of recognizing people, I am seriously in awe of the videos that everyone brought. I think that those were so cool and so inspiring, and to be in a room of people that are so passionate and so focused on making a difference. Let's just all stand up and give each other a hand and give our talent, exceptional talent leaders a hand, just to get some energy going. It is really energizing to be around people who are passionate about what they do and passionate about making a difference, and it is one of the things that I find really rewarding about the profession and the job is that our jobs are so impactful and we can make a difference in people's lives. So, having said that, I just hit this to go in the
Top one.
Okay. So there's so much uniformity in the messages that we've been hearing over the last day and a half around it's all about the talent, it's all about the people. So we have a lot of commonality on that, and how we brand it is a little bit different. Some of the award winners, I definitely plan on taking back what I've learned and applying it, because so much of what we do, if it works, it is so applicable across the industries. So, with that said, who in the room has worked in healthcare or does work in healthcare? Seems like there was a lot. Okay, I have mad respect for healthcare professionals out there in HR. I worked for healthcare for 7 years and learned a lot about competing for talent and the value proposition. We worked for a few years at my last employer with a gentleman named Quint Studer. Wrote an amazing book, Results That Last. And I applied a lot of those principles when I joined Gate Group to creating what we branded People First. So just as Shannon was talking about earlier today, we all want a job and a life that has a purpose. And we want an organization that has a purpose. What that means to everybody is a little different, but that really hit home because that's what we based People First on. So communicating what that job is and what the purpose of a job is, what the purpose of our organization is the number one imperative. And then we all want to do worthwhile work, right? And make a difference. So none of us want to do work that's going to go nowhere or be put on a shelf or not make a difference. So those three things I took directly from Quint Studer and my time in healthcare and applied it at Gate Group. So several years ago, we focused on really diving into why people join our organization and why do they stay. And that really boiled down to these three things, because if you're going to be able to grow, if you're going to be able to contribute, that's why you join. I can tell you working with a great team is a big part of what I'm blessed to do. I love my team. They make a difference to me and my life, and so much of our time is at work. Definitely if you work with a team and you feel blessed to be there, that's definitely going to be energizing and retain you. And then the right overall incentives. This morning at our networking breakfast, I came away with 5 pages of notes about how to make the organization have a win-win value proposition. And a lot of our talk yesterday in the Pontoon Talent session was about figuring out what people want and then how you can deliver on your value proposition to what they want. And it's basically the right overall incentives are win-win. Getting the right connection. So this in one page is as best as I can explain what People First is for Gate Group and how it came about. So with that, I'll go to the next slide. Okay, so for us in the room, HR gurus, these 5 categories are no surprise to you. They serve as our pillars of People First. So they're all the key things that we do, whether it be a function or a process. But in these 5 areas, recruit, retain, engage, reward, and develop, what I found is, I forgot who the speaker was that was this morning saying, well, how much does your organization agrees that people are make the difference. People add to the bottom line. You got to have talent, you got to have people. But then when you ask your executives, okay, well, so how much are we investing in that? Sometimes you get an answer, sometimes you get like a confused look. How much are you spending on an excellent recruiting function? How much are you spending on developing these fantastic leaders? How much are you investing in the tools that you give these leaders to be successful? I definitely found that to be the case when I started in my role. And the way that I achieved success in changing that from it's a problem but we're not spending money on it was to bring the people who had the money to the table to own the problem. And I can tell you it's not HR's problem to solve, it's not HR's throat to choke, although that dynamic definitely does exist still. But I brought in business leaders to be co-owners of each one of these 5 categories. And so that sharing of the problem achieved sharing of the solution. So if you have a leader in your organization that's always critical of recruitment, my advice is bring them in, help them solve the problem. You know, there's some value in that conflict that they can bring to bear, because that was my experience. So recruiting is obvious, right? About bringing in the right people for the right roles, retaining, doing the things that work best to keep employees with your company. Engaging them is about enabling them. And rewarding them in a way that's meaningful and most impactful for your organization. And last but not least, developing them and building the plan for the future. These are the 5 categories.
Right, so as Laurie explained, these are obviously huge buzzwords that I'm sure you guys are faced with every day. So now we're gonna get involved. We're gonna do some improv, like tonight's Second City. No, I'm kidding. It's going to be far less painless. If you could go to the next slide, Laurie. We have some questions. They're also on your table. You'll see a sheet. We're going to break out again. And we're going to talk for about 10 to 15 minutes about one of these topics. And we let some questions under them so you guys can get engaged and best practice share. And once you're done, we're going to have Laurie talk to the points, and you can share your advice from a spokesperson at your table. So if you do not have a paper, if it got picked up, Marta will be happy to deliver it to you, and they're also on the screen. So let's see what you guys come up with.
Okay, which one do you guys want to do? Let's see. All right, we're going to do the retain piece. So we talked a little bit about what has been our best strategy for retaining workers around our table. It was really emphasizing flexibility to the extent that we can. So
Right.
a lot more areas are going to work from home or scheduling type of flexibility. So as much as we're able, sort of pushing the envelope on that piece of it to really enhance the retention of employees. And feedback that we've gotten from employees is that they like it. They understand it's a trade-off for other things. Some folks have cited from an engagement perspective that surveys have shown that it's a highly valued commodity there. And the other question we also looked at on retain is what part of the hiring or onboarding process has the biggest impact on retention. And we really talked about maybe less about the process, but it's really about setting the stage. So does everything match in the recruiting process to real life when you got on the job?
Yeah.
You know,
So
what you were,
realistic
it's basically,
expectations.
yeah,
Yes.
fulfilling the promise and delivering on expectations. Because if you can, if those two match, then the employee feels well prepared for the future, and I think it builds the trust in the relationship they've signed off on, because it's fragile in the first 90 days.
Yep, sure
So,
is. Those are great.
Okay, thank you.
And Laurie, do you have anything to parallel that and with your retention piece?
You know, I don't, on this point, I don't have a parallel, but I do have a question, because flexibility is key, right? Scheduling and are there any specific tactics you can say worked well? Like, how did you make the flexibility known so that people could say, yes, I want that shift, or I want to do this?
Yeah, and is it consistent for employees?
So I'll speak to our organization, the Red Cross. We can't do it everywhere, right? There's certain critical.
Right.
You know, we have mobile phlebotomists that are on the road all the time, and they have to show up for blood drives. So we don't really have it there. But in other parts, we basically have empowered managers to make the decisions unit by unit.
Okay.
So we don't have, you know, we have some general policies around telerecruitment and those types of things, but we've empowered each manager to say, if it works for the business unit and I can get it done, I can get the work done and be productive, then
It's
then
nice
they
that
can
you
do
can be
it.
that flexible.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So I don't
put that trust in your managers.
Yeah, we spoke about that with Pitney Bowes as well, and I'd say we're very similar. It really has to be area by area if it works for that manager, for that department. But beyond that, we have formalized, so we do have either fully, you know, working in the office. We have those that are mixed, that might come in 2-3 days a week, and then we have those that are completely agile. And for those that are completely agile, we do have a formal process they need to go through. They need to fill out a form, they sign it, their manager signs it, you know, they get $500 to start up their office. So if they decide to go that route and that works, then I'd say that is a little more formalized to make sure everybody understands what's involved and that it can be taken away if it's not working. But we don't find that too often.
This is a really, really important issue for me, and I know we're all probably burning up time here, but for the vendors in the room, right, I hope they're listening to this, because I think the technologies and the platforms aren't there where they need to be to know what the supply is for what levels of flexibility, right? Wouldn't it be cool that you didn't have to raise your hand, that you just know that people, you know, would say, I want to work this, and that the supply and the demand would match up.
Like a
So
workflow
there's got to
system.
be,
Yeah.
there's got to be some technology brought to bear on that.
Do we have a volunteer table before I call on someone? Oh, great, thank you.
I'm just going to hand out the microphone.
Thanks. We talked a little bit about engaging the workforce. I work for a hospital, and one of our most important initiatives are scripted rounding.
Yep.
We do a variety of rounding on a variety of people, whether it's patients, employees. But we talked more specifically about executive rounding, where we have scripted rounding. We go out 1 time per week, so 4 times a month, and 1 time a month it's actually on a weekend or night shift.
Yep.
And we round on a group of employees, typically it's a department, and then we come back and we debrief of what we heard. But we ask 3 things: what's going well, what's not going so well, and maybe under engagement here is there anyone you'd like to recognize that really exhibits our core values? And then what we do is we take that story, it can be recognition within their department or outside the department. And we take the story back to the senior leadership team, and then our commitment is we write a thank you card to that employee and tell them about that experience or what was shared with us, and we send that to their house.
Do you have a lot of traction on your thank you notes? Get a lot of good feedback on that?
Yes, we do. It's an awful lot of thank you notes that we write, but it really pays off
Do you measure
in
it?
the long run. We do. Maybe not scientifically, we do get a lot of comments in our employee engagement survey about recognition, and they do say that they're receiving them and that they like them, and it means a lot to them.
That's great.
And what do you do with the feedback of the what's working, what's
The
not
rounding,
working?
yeah.
Well, when we go through the debriefing process, we comprise a list, and in the beginning it was difficult to really get these things knocked off, but it is important to get them knocked off and get them addressed. We've also, so we do that as quickly as we can. We also, in our hospital newsletter, we have a section on things that we fixed or solved. So this way it
that's
reinforces
great.
back to the employees.
And you're communicating
And
it.
communicating.
Absolutely.
There is a mechanism for the leader to get back to them, and there's so many different pieces. Sometimes it doesn't get there, so we have different methods that we use.
Yeah, that's a
That's a
great way
great
to build
idea.
trust. And we try to do that too, and I know there's got to be some best. I'd like to connect with you after this about, it's like not only doing the rounding, but then taking the actions on what you heard in the rounding, so that's a great share.
Anyone else? Okay, you're going to make us keep to our time. I want to thank Laurie. Everyone join me in thanking Laurie for her time today.